welcome to this deep dive.
Hmm.
We're looking into a case today that honestly just continues to baffle investigators and, well, everyone really, the disappearance of Brian Shaffer.
It really does. It's one of those stories that sticks with you because it feels like it shouldn't be possible.
Exactly. A young man walks into a crowded bar and just never walks out. That's the simplest way to put it,
Yeah.
but it's so much more complex.
No trace, no body, no real solid explanation after all these years. It's deeply, deeply perplexing.
It is, especially, in our world today with cameras everywhere. You think someone can't just vanish like that.
Right. The fact that there's no confirmed exit on any footage, that's the hook. That's what makes it so uniquely disturbing.
Okay, let's set the scene a bit for everyone. We're talking Friday night, March 31st, 2006, Columbus, Ohio.
Big college town, Ohio State University.
Right, OSU. And it's the start of spring break, so you can imagine the atmosphere. Students are celebrating, ready to relax.
A lot of energy, yeah. People out having a good time.
And Brian Shaffer, he's 27 at the time, a medical student. By all accounts, a bright guy with a solid future planned.
Second year of med school, which is notoriously tough.
Absolutely. And the last definite sighting we have of him is on CCTV footage. It shows him going into the Ugly Tuna Saloon.
Which was a really popular spot then, right, in the university district.
Yeah, exactly. But the mystery, the core of it all, is that he's just never seen leaving on any camera.
It's like he evaporated inside those walls. It's, yeah, baffling is the right word.
So let's dig into the context. 2006, Columbus, like you said, huge student population at OSU, over 50,000 students.
So the area of the university district would have been very busy, especially on a Friday night kicking off spring break.
No doubt. And the Ugly Tuna Saloon was a known hangout. Brian was out celebrating finishing his exams the start of the break.
Makes sense. A lot of students would be doing the same thing.
He had plans too. A trip to Miami lined up with his girlfriend, Alexis. Things seemed, on the surface at least, pretty positive.
There was something significant happening personally for him, though, wasn't there?
Yes, that's true. And it's something investigators definitely looked at. His mother had sadly passed away from cancer relatively recently before his disappearance.
And friends did mention, I believe, that he was, understandably, still processing that grief. It was hitting him hard.
Yeah, while we can't know exactly what was going through his head, it's definitely a piece of the background context.
Something you have to consider, yeah.
So earlier that evening, Friday evening, Brian actually had dinner with his dad, Randy.
Okay.
Then later, he met up with a friend, Clint Florence. And eventually another friend, Meredith Reed, gave them a ride.
So it was a group night out, essentially.
Right. They started at the Arena Grand Theater, did some bar hopping, and ended up at the Ugly Tuna Saloon around 1:30 in the morning.
Okay, getting pretty late or early, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah. And here's the critical moment, the last time we know where he was. At 1:55 a.m., the security camera outside the Ugly Tuna captures him. He's chatting briefly with two young women.
Right, I remember this footage. He speaks them for a moment.
And then he turns and walks back inside the bar. That's it. The last confirmed visual.
And after that, nothing. No footage of him coming back out that same entrance.
None. Which brings us to the layout of the bar itself. The Ugly Tuna Saloon. It wasn't on the ground floor, was it?
No, it was on the second floor of the South Campus Gateway complex. You had to take an escalator up to get to it. It was above, I think, a seafood restaurant at the time.
That sounds right. Inside, you had the main bar area, a patio space, restrooms. Nothing unusual, no obvious secret passages or anything like that.
Pretty standard bar layout.
And importantly, there was really only one main public entrance and exit, the one with the escalator.
And that specific entrance exit point was covered by CCTV.
Correct, which is why the footage is so crucial. He goes in, but he doesn't come out that way. So you immediately think, okay, what else?
Were there camera blind spots? Could he have slipped out somewhere else?
Exactly. People always ask about service exits. There was one, apparently.
Right, the service door. But what's the story with that?
Well, according to the police investigation, that service exit led towards an adjacent construction site. But here's the key. It was kept locked, and it was alarmed.
And the alarm never went off that night.
That's what the reports say. No alarm triggered. Plus, they searched that construction site thoroughly afterward.
But I found nothing. No sign of him, no disturbance.
Nothing. So that route seems highly unlikely, to say the least.
Okay, so back inside the bar, it's getting close to closing time, 2:00 a.m. His friends, Clint and Meredith, realize they can't find Brian.
Right. They said they looked around for him, called his name, checked the restrooms.
Standard stuff when you lose someone in a crowded bar.
But couldn't find him anywhere. So what do you do? They figured, okay, maybe he just decided to walk home or caught a ride with someone else.
A logical assumption at the time, probably. You don't immediately jump to the worst conclusion.
Not usually, no. But the next day, Saturday, things start to feel wrong. His girlfriend, Alexis, tries calling him for their trip.
And the calls go straight to voicemail.
Straight to voicemail. His apartment is checked, looks totally untouched, nothing out of place, car's still there.
Okay, yeah. That's when the alarm bells really start ringing. This isn't just him sleeping it off or changing plans without telling anyone.
Exactly. It becomes clear pretty quickly that something is seriously wrong.
Let's just nail down that timeline again because it's so critical. 1:55 a.m., Brian seen on CCTV going back into the Ugly Tuna.
Correct.
2:00 a.m., just 5 minutes later, the bar officially closes. Patrons start leaving. Brian is not seen among them on camera.
And his friends, Clint and Meredith, they do search inside before they leave themselves.
Right. Then, April 1st, that's the Saturday, Alexis is worried, can't reach him. Brian's dad, Randy, files a missing person report.
And that kicks off the official police investigation, reviewing hours and hours of that CCTV footage.
Which confirms, definitively, he went in that main entrance.
But never came out. Not via that route anyway.
And they double-check the service exit story, locked, alarmed, no alarm triggered that night. Solidifies that angle.
Yeah. Police interview everyone they can think of. Bar staff, other patrons, those two women he spoke to briefly outside.
Who apparently just had a quick, casual chat, didn't know him before that night.
Right. And Clint and Meredith, of course.
Yeah.
Their stories were consistent, matched what was known.
And the security system itself. Any chance it malfunctioned, missed something?
They checked that too. According to reports, the system was working properly. No glitches reported for that time frame.
So the footage is considered reliable. What you see, or rather don't see, is accurate.
That seems to be the conclusion, yeah. So the police investigation ramps up. We're talking a massive search effort.
Columbus police, Ohio State campus police involved.
They search the whole university district, nearby areas, the rivers, Olentangy River is close by.
Cadaver dogs were brought in too, right? Both inside the bar and outside?
They were. Extensive searches, and the result.
Nothing. Absolutely zero trace of Brian. No clothing, no belongings, no physical evidence whatsoever.
It's quite remarkable, really, the lack of any clue turning up in those initial intensive searches.
It really is. You'd expect something. A shoe, a phone, anything. But complete absence.
So flyers go up everywhere. Local news covers it heavily. But tips are scarce, especially credible ones.
And the police are just watching that CCTV footage over and over again.
Trying to account for every single person seen entering and leaving the bar that night.
And they managed to do that for everyone, except Brian leaving. He's the only anomaly.
The family, understandably, becomes heavily involved. They hire their own private investigators.
Trying to find angles the police might have missed, maybe?
I assume so. They also launched the website, findbrianshaffer.com, put up a reward, really pushing to keep his name and face out there.
Which is so important in these cases, keeping the public aware.
The case even got national attention. America's Most Wanted featured it.
But even that didn't lead to a breakthrough.
Unfortunately, no. No solid leads came from that exposure either.
So, as time passes, the investigation naturally starts looking deeper into Brian's life, right? Trying to find any reason he might have disappeared.
Yeah, they re-examine everything. The grief over his mother, his relationship with Alexis, the pressures of medical school. Was there something else going on?
But did they ever find a concrete motive? Anything suggesting he'd want to just leave?
Nothing clear ever emerged. No obvious reason for him to vanish, voluntarily or involuntarily.
And the evidence really argues against him just walking away, doesn't it?
It strongly suggests it. His bank accounts were never touched after that night.
His phone went silent after he entered the bar. No activity since.
And his car was left parked at his apartment. These just aren't the actions of someone planning to disappear and start a new life.
Doesn't fit the pattern at all, which leaves, well, theories. Lots of speculation.
Exactly. And because there's no evidence, the theories run the gamut. Let's talk about the accidental death idea first.
Okay. The thinking here is maybe he did somehow slip out unnoticed, maybe through that construction area.
And then had an accident, fell into a ditch, maybe fell into the Olentangy River nearby.
It's a possibility you have to consider in any disappearance near water or hazards.
But the searches, they were so thorough in that area. River searches, ground searches, the dogs.
And found nothing. It makes an undiscovered accident seem pretty improbable. Not impossible, maybe, but very unlikely given the effort.
Okay, then there's the foul play theory. Something happened inside the bar.
Maybe a robbery gone wrong, a sudden fight, Some kind of random violence.
It's possible in a crowded bar environment, things can happen quickly. But the counterpoint is,
No witnesses. The Ugly Tuna was busy that night. You'd think someone would have seen a major altercation, a struggle, something out of the ordinary.
right, police interviewed staff and patrons, and nobody reported seeing anything like that involving Brian.
Which makes targeted foul play inside the bar harder to substantiate. Doesn't rule it out entirely, but lack of witnesses is a big hurdle.
Then you have the voluntary disappearance theory. Maybe the grief was too much. Maybe he just wanted out, wanted a completely new start.
There was that mention of him wanting to start a band, wasn't there? Sort of a side interest?
Yeah, casual mention.
Mm.
But the idea is maybe he staged it all.
But his family and friends have always pushed back hard against that.
Very strongly. They say it was completely out of character. He had the Miami trip planned. He was close to his dad and brother, invested in his future medical career.
It just doesn't seem to align with the person they knew or his actions leading up to that night.
So, that leaves us circling back to the exit. The CCTV blind spot theory. Could he have gotten out somehow, somewhere the cameras didn't see?
Maybe a service door we don't know about. Or a gap in the footage they missed.
It's the theory that hinges on the idea that the surveillance wasn't perfect.
But the detectives on the case seemed pretty adamant, didn't they? They insisted all the known viable exits were covered.
They did. They reviewed the layout, the footage, the exits. The main one covered, the service one locked and alarmed. They felt confident he didn't leave through conventional means.
Which just brings us back to that central, impossible question. How?
Yeah, it's just incredible. The human cost of this, though, is immense. The impact on his family has been devastating.
His father, Randy, his dedication was extraordinary.
Absolutely heartbreaking. He searched tirelessly, kept advocating, kept Brian's story alive until his own very tragic death in 2008.
An accident, wasn't it? During a storm while looking near an area potentially related to Brian's case, I believe. Just awful.
Just layers of tragedy. His unwavering commitment, though, was incredible.
And Brian's brother, Derek, he picked up that torch.
He did. He still maintains the website, uses social media, keeps pushing for answers, carrying on that search.
And Alexis, his girlfriend at the time.
Reports say she has, understandably, moved on with her life, but still holds out hope that answers will come someday. How could you not?
Yeah. The uncertainty must be unbearable.
The disappearance also left a mark on Columbus, you know. People in the community were really shaken by it.
And the Ugly Tuna Saloon itself, it's closed now, but it's become this sort of local legend forever tied to this mystery.
Definitely. In Brian's case, it's become a staple in true crime discussions. Podcasts, forums, videos, TikTok. People are still fascinated and disturbed by it.
Because it represents that ultimate fear, perhaps. Vanishing without explanation.
I think so. It really highlights the agony of not knowing. The lack of closure is just a constant weight for those left behind.
That profound grief that can't fully process because there's no endpoint.
Even now, almost 20 years later, where does the case stand?
Officially, it's still open, but it's very much a cold case. Active leads dried up long ago. As of April 2025, that's the status.
There have been little glimmers of hope, or maybe false hope, over the years, though, right?
A few. There was a claim in 2023 by a private investigator about finding new CCTV footage, but that didn't seem to lead anywhere concrete.
And more recently, 2024, wasn't there a tip about him being possibly seen in Mexico?
Yes, there was an image circulated online that some thought resembled an older Brian, but authorities investigated, compared facial features, and concluded it wasn't him. That lead was debunked.
So frustrating dead ends, really.
Pretty much. Of course, you always wonder about future technology, AI, better facial recognition. Could that help?
Maybe. But the challenges are huge. The original footage is likely grainy, low resolution by today's standards. And so much time has passed.
Facial aging algorithms are getting better, but it's still a long shot with old, limited source material.
But the possibility is there, however slim. And the Columbus police still get tips occasionally.
And the family holds that annual vigil, keeping his memory alive, reminding people the search isn't over for them.
It's incredibly poignant. You have to wonder, could 2025, the year we're in now, finally be the year something breaks?
It's the question everyone connected to the case asks every year. You hold on to that hope, however faint it seems.
Because ultimately, Brian Shaffer's disappearance is just one of the most profoundly unsettling modern mysteries. How does someone just cease to be visible in a public place surrounded by people?
Whether it was an accident hidden from view or foul play that left no trace or something else entirely, the not knowing is the hardest part.
It really is. It's frustrating, it's perplexing, and it's incredibly sad. There are just no definitive answers.
It really pushes up against the limits of what we think is possible and the limits of investigation sometimes. Some things remain stubbornly hidden.
So a reminder to you, our listeners, if you have any information at all, even something that seems tiny or insignificant, about the disappearance of Brian Shaffer on March 31st, 2006, please contact the Columbus Police Department. The number is 614-645-4545.
Any piece of information could potentially be the one that makes a difference.
Brian Shaffer's story, it really is this stark, sobering reminder, isn't it? About how fragile our presence can feel, how easily a life can become shrouded in mystery almost instantly.
It makes you think about the gaps in our understanding, the things we can't explain.
And maybe, too, about that persistent human need, that hope for finding answers, for finding light, even in the most prolonged and darkest of unknowns.